Alright all, and welcome back to a new video and another weekend preview of the best horse racing on offer this weekend, going into Ascot and York, and obviously a few races at the Curragh on Sunday as well to add into the mix, and Ascot on Sunday also. This is going to be, as I say, it's going to be a weekend preview. Going to take the form of the last few videos, which have kind of been covering 4 or 5 of the bigger races, and then a nap of the weekend for you guys. Last week, unfortunately, the nap of the weekend wasn't very good. After 2 successful winning naps, Memorabilis was well beaten, put in his place by the older horses in the mile 6 race. But we made up for it with Romantic Proposal winning the Premier Handicap for Eddie Line, and we put up at 12-1. We put her up at 12-1, and she went off, I think, 6-1 in the end. She won by a head. A great ride by Wayne Lorden. But as I say, the King George is the main action to get into this weekend. Obviously, next week, the Galway Festival, Goodwood races as well. You might let me know in the comments down below whether you want to see day-by-day videos for those. I'm perfectly open to doing them. I would like to do them, but I suppose I'll just make sure that the interest is there before firing. So, starting off on Saturday, 2 races we're going to be covering on Saturday, starting off with the King George over mile 4. Only 4 runners in the race. I know there's been a lot of kind of hyperluting on Twitter about it all. Only the 4 runners, 2 trainers, all of this stuff. At the end of the day, yes, in an ideal circumstance, you'd have a few more runners, but it's 4 very good horses. Enable, Japan, Anthony Van Dyke and Sovereign. You've got really brilliant horses there, 3 of which were classic winners, and Japan was third in the Derby himself. So, you can't really argue too much. At the end of the day, Enable is 8-15. Now, she's very short at that price. Yes, of course, with a price like that, she is the most likely winner, and that's, a blind man could tell you that. Her run in the Eclipse was a good run, especially over a trip that will be below minimum at this stage, below her optimum these days, as she is really a mile 4 filly. I don't know whether I'd be advising anybody to wade in at that type of price, though. I think the race is a bit better than people are giving it credit for. And especially on decent enough ground, I think it brings the other 3 horses, the O'Brien horses, into play. I think the 3 O'Brien horses all want slightly better ground. And I'm not saying, I think Enable wants that type of ground as well, but I'm just saying it's not. I don't see it as just quite as much of a cakewalk as the 1-2, 8-15 that's being floated around, personally. Now, maybe I'll be made to look a mug by that, and as I've said on previous things, the likes of Enable is really good for racing. So whenever she wins one of these big races, I'm hardly going to be the one kind of begrudging it. But that being said, I'm not going to back. I actually am going to back Japan against her. It is one of these ones where I suspect a lot of people would tell you it's a no-bet race, and I can kind of see that, but we're making videos here trying to preview races and make selections. I'm not going to preview a race and then tell you not to have anything in it. Japan, he's around 10-3. I think it's a fair price. I saw a bit of talk during the week about people kind of, going on about Japan and, Magical was a much better chance of beating Enable and stuff like that. I think that's a whole load of crap, to be honest. I think Japan's a better horse than Magical. I'm willing to be proven wrong about that, but, beat her easily in the Arc last year. And personally, we'll get on to Magical, as I will be covering the Tattersalls Gold Cup on the Curragh later in the video, but I have a few views about her anyway. But Japan, I think, is a really good horse. I still think he's a really good horse. I think his run in the Eclipse was a massive improvement on his run at Ascot, obviously, and last year it took 2 or 3 races to get him particularly right. His best run was probably winning the King Edward at Royal Ascot, and then he went on to win 2 Group 1s after that. So I think by no means have they gotten to the bottom of him. Obviously, Ryan Moore rides him, given that he has got better form in the book than Anthony Van Dyke and Sovereign. But Anthony Van Dyke is a horse that I like, actually, and he's not the type of horse I usually like, but I think he gets a lot of kind of bad rep almost, and actually he's won a fair few really nice races. He just can't go on any soft ground, which is fair enough. There are horses like that. But anyway, Japan, I think is the most likely horse that's going to be able to put it up to Enable. Obviously, I suspect Sovereign will be the one making a lot of the running, and it'll be interesting to see how Frankie kind of does with that, because Sovereign isn't a horse you want to be giving just a complete freebie to. He's well good enough to potentially pounce one from the front, but I do think Enable, Japan, and probably Anthony Van Dyke will end up going past Sovereign, and I just think that Japan's got a good chance here. I think 10-3 is not a bad bet, to be honest, and he will be my selection for the King George. The Sky Bet York Stakes, over a mile, 2.5 furlongs at York. Group 2 contest. A lot of the kind of good old favourites that run in these races, the likes of Ellercam, Telecaster, Regal Reality, King of Comedy, all these sort of horses. The one I'm going to end up putting up here, it's a bit frustrating. This race is a 7-runner race, so it's only 2 places, but I'm still going to put them up each way, is Lord Glitters at 11-1. Obviously, you're only going to get, as I said, 2 places. Yeah, pleasing enough return 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Behind Mahathir. In the Ascot Mile, a Group 2 race, nearest at the finish over a mile. This horse has only ran once over this trip while being trained by David O'Mara over here in England. Ran over a mile two or three times as a 2-year-old over in France, which is interesting enough, and won a few times. So kind of, you would have hoped gets the trip. And that run was behind Japan and Crystal Ocean in the Juddmonte last year when finishing 6th, beating 4 lengths. Now, he was behind a couple of these in that race. He was behind Ellercam, he was behind Regal Reality. But I think he's worth another crack at this trip, and I don't think the price is indicative of, he's a Queen Anne winner at the end of the day. Now I know it probably wasn't a vintage Queen Anne, but he is a good horse, and he is probably a lower Group 1 horse or a really good Group 2 horse. The likes of an Ellercam, he's obviously a very good horse, but he very rarely wins. Telecaster's a type of horse that will either win this really easily or bomb out, I think. He's very hot and cold. I can't really get a handle on him at all. He obviously won very impressively out in France last time out, but he wouldn't particularly be for me, I must confess, and the likes of Regal Reality and King of Comedy aren't exactly, perennial winners either. So this Lord Glitters, I think, could run a big race. I think he's unexposed, even though he's a 7-year-old, he's obviously not unexposed, but there's perhaps a hint more improvement to come from him at this trip. It's looking a bit like a mile is a little bit short for him these days. Now, maybe he's one of these horses that in an ideal circumstance would run over 9 furlongs, but I'm going to give him a go here. I think 11-1's a big price. Moving on to Sunday's action, starting off at Ascot with the Valiant Fillies Stakes, a mile race for Group 3 fillies. And at the time of recording, you do have to bear in mind, some of these, an awful lot of the Irish races for the weekend still haven't been priced up. It's midday on Friday here. This race has been priced up, but only by a few bookmakers, and William Hill are giving 4-1. That is the price that I saw available at time of recording on Miss O'Connor, the daughter of Roderick O'Connor, who was actually trained by Johnny Feen over in Ireland when winning a Gowran maiden, beating Romantic Proposal, who obviously went on to win for us last week. So that form isn't too bad in the book. Went over to be trained by William Haggis and has been absolutely brilliant. Won by 11 lengths in a novice at Nottingham and then won a listed race at Heliac by 2.5 before going over to win a Group 3 at Saint Cloud at the end of last year with Pierre-Charles Boudot on board. She's a progressive filly. My only slight concern is that all of these races have been on softer ground, and she does look like a horse that really, really likes soft ground. So if it turns up good, is that a concern? Well, it's one of these, it may be a concern, but at the same stage, she hasn't actually run on it. So it's very hard to know, does she act on it or not? I suspect if it goes good to firm or something, I'd say there's every likelihood she'll be a non-runner. But good ground, you don't know. I look at the race, I don't think it's a particularly strong race. Bilston Brook is the favourite. Obviously a very good filly, a former 1,000 guineas winner. But again, not one of these horses that wins an overly big amount of the time. And sometimes a mile, she's a funny filly. Sometimes she's closing, like in the Falmouth last time out, at a mile. Sometimes a mile looks like it's maybe a half furlong too long. She's a very hard filly to get a handle on, but at the end of the day, she doesn't win as many races as perhaps she should do for a filly of her quality. Miss O'Connor does have a lot to progress to get up to her, but she does look a progressive filly, and she does look, especially maybe back on soft ground, like a Group 1 Fillies race would be within her remit, to be honest. So I'm going to take a chance that the good ground won't be too much of an inconvenience, and 4-1 seems a fair price. The Princess Margaret is a 6 furlong Group 3 race for fillies, and the only reason I'm covering this race is I've got a very strong shout in it, and it's this Aidan O'Brien More Beautiful, who obviously we went in on for the Queen Mary with not much luck, even though she was backed off the boards that day. Now, it's interesting to note that Aidan O'Brien seems to have a poor record in that race, so I don't know whether that's something to actually look into, but she's currently 5-2 with Ladbrokes, and I just can't understand. I think it's a big price, to be honest. You look back at her maiden form when she beat Rose's Blue by 3.5 lengths. I think Rose's Blue herself will be a very nice filly for Jessica Harrington. You had the likes of Aloha Star back in 8th, who's won a Group 2 since, Nimbo Stratus for Ger Lyons, who's won a maiden since, Measure of Magic for Johnny Murta, who's won a maiden since, Dent Star, who's been placed in 2 or 3 maidens since. It's a really, really strong maiden at Naas. She was really, really impressive that day. She was back, as I say, she was backed off the boards in the Queen Mary. It was one of those odd ones that she was drawn stand side, which, you know, during the sprints throughout the whole week seemed to be the place to be. But that being said, she was drawn around all these 100-1 horses, so she actually had to do an awful lot of her own donkey work and ended up getting swamped late and weakened into 9th. I think there's an awful lot of improvement still to come from her, and I'd be taking the 5-2 on offer. Moving over to the Curragh on Sunday, just going to preview the 2. Tattersalls Gold Cup is going to be a short one, a mile 2 furlongs. Look, Magical, she'll win this race, I suspect. This race, for some reason, is not priced up. Even though it's a Group 1, we've got the official entries and it's not priced up. It's an absolute shocker, to be honest. I think she'll be a short price. I'd say she'll be odds on, which he would be the selection, because look, we're trying to back winners at the end of the day. It's a very soft Group 1. Buckhurst is a Group 2, Group 3 horse. Sir Dragonet is obviously a tricky horse to win with. Has ability, but, you know, Search for a Song needs a lot further than a mile 2. So I think Magical will win this. I think she'll win this quite easily. I just have this slight thing in my mind that a lot of the Group 1s that Magical has won have ended up being a little bit soft on paper. I know that might be quite controversial. Maybe you guys disagree. If you do, please do let me know. I just think, like, obviously she won both Champion Stakes last year, the Irish and English version. So, you know, she's an excellent, excellent filly. My point being really that whenever she's faced Enable, and she's faced Enable now a fair few times, she's always been beaten. No real excuses. And I just think she always wins this type of a Group 1, but I don't think she'll ever be able to win, you know, an Arc or something. But when everyone's there, you know, when the real top Group 1 horses are there, I don't think she can win Group 1s. I think in these sort of Group 1s, she's far too good. She's a very good Group 1 horse, without maybe being just a complete and utter world beater. So, as I say, Magical will win that race, I suspect. Short price, I'll leave that up to you whether you guys want to weigh in on that or not. The last one I'm going to cover is the Mongey Communications Handicap over a mile 2. It's a Premier Handicap. Again, not priced up, so I have no idea what price this horse will be. I'm hoping it'll be an each way price, but I'm going to back Charcor for Jessica Harrington and Shane Foley. I think there's a big handicap in this horse over a mile 2. Seems to be a very good at Dundalk. Obviously beat a Mick Halford horse called Simsir back at Dundalk in December time. Simsir obviously went over to Maidan, was very good. He's a horse I like a lot and was very unlucky not to win the listed race at Leopardstown yesterday. He then was second to Patrick Sarsfield, who's since, you know, become a, you know, Group 2, Group 3, perhaps Group 1 animal, before finishing 8th in the Cork Derby. Didn't seem to stay that day. Back to a mile 2 here. He's off a career high marker 97, but I still think he's got very good each way claims, and hopefully Charcor can run a very good race. And that leaves us down with our nap. And our nap comes tomorrow, Saturday at Gowran, 2:30. The Vintage Tipple Mile 6 furlong listed race for fillies and mares, 4-year-old plus. And I rate this as a 2-horse race. It's another race, doesn't have the prices up. I suspect this filly will be second favourite. I'm not sure how short though. But I'm going to have my nap of the day being Heliac for Gerlines and Colin Keane in the Judmont Silks. His daughter Champs-Élysées out of a Galileo mare. Surely has the stamina to boot. She won 3 times at a mile 2 furlongs, winning a few nice little handicaps at the end of last season, and reappeared to win the Noblesse at Leopardstown over a mile 4, beating Fresnel by a head. Now Fresnel hasn't exactly come out and done the favours, massive amount of form. Love Is the Higher Law was third for Paddy Toomey. She's a very solid but not spectacular listed / Group 3 horse. But this Heliac really got going quite late that day on her first step up to a mile 4, and only just about got there. So I think this step up to a mile 6 will really suit. Look, at the end of the day, you're going to be you're kind of playing with fire a bit. You're backing against this Castaza for Dermot Weld, who potentially could be a really good filly, and we're I think £9 inferior on the ratings. So we have a fair bit to find at the end of the day, but I'm just hoping and praying really that Castaza will need the run, and I don't think there's really anything else in the race. There's 2 Joseph O'Brien horses in there. They wouldn't particularly concern me. I think this Heliac really has a big chance here. She looks a really progressive horse, and obviously Gerline's doing very well at the moment, especially with his fillies. So that is something to bear in mind. I am backing it slightly on, trainer form, hoping the favourite, needs the day, or, the likely favourite will need the run, and we can maybe take advantage in this listed race. Anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel down below. And obviously let me know if you want the Galway or Goodwood day-by-day videos, and I'll hopefully be able to supply the goods if the demand is there. And of course, if you have any big fancies for the weekend, please do let us all know down below, so hopefully we can go and back a few winners together. And until next time, which will either be, Sunday, Monday, or, sometime next week maybe. Hope you stay safe, stay lucky, land a few, and I'll see you guys then. Cheers.